Nick Pringer. I'm the CEO of a group called Pringer Solutions Group, and we have a service we call AskGenius, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm joined by the very smart Will, who is from Fundraise Up. And what we put together here is a quick, no-nonsense demonstration for you of all the things that we've learned about online donation forms, how you should design them, what works, what doesn't, and then ask strings, what a pledge card should look like, how you should set your ask strings. So we're going to walk through all that for you, and we're going to answer any questions. And afterward, we'll send out a link to the video to everybody. Will, how's that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Sounds really great.
Great. Why don't you go first?
Perfect. Well, just so you guys know, I'll give a little intro of what Fundraise Up is and why we're qualified to talk about this. We're an online donation platform, and our goal is to reduce as much friction as possible from someone trying to donate online. And by doing that, we've seen that you can double your online donations just from a couple of simple little things that you can do to your online donation form and make them a lot easier. Well, I made a slide for you too, Nick, if you want to say who you are.
Love it. So AskGenius is actually a tool that we built. So we're a consulting firm. We help a lot of nonprofits with running annual direct mail appeals. In the process of that, we found ourselves doing a really painful task of how do we set the perfect ask amount. So we built a tool to do that for nonprofits using the data they have in their system. We can comb through the data with a click of a button, generate the perfect ask strings for every prospect on your list. So that's what we do.
I thought, well, let's see. I thought we'd start off with a couple of definitions because I know I might use some big words, and I didn't know what half these words meant before I started working for Fundraise Up. So I thought, let's define them right from the beginning so no one has to be confused. What is artificial intelligence? It's something that powers a lot of our platform, and it's a word that gets thrown around a ton nowadays. It's not a scary Skynet Terminator kind of thing. It is just a simulation of human intelligence that a computer is doing. It is running algorithms. It is running code to be able to think like a human and be able to have critical thinking skills. What is machine learning? Very often gets confused that they're very similar and they work alongside each other a lot, but they are different things. And machine learning is just that a computer program can learn and adapt to new data. If you've taught it something on one data set and you show it another data set, it can learn and use that new data set. Conversion rate is a term that we use a lot, and all that means is the amount of people that click on your donate form, or in Nick's case, the amount of people that you've sent a appeal to, how many of those people actually donate. And then A/B test is a word that gets thrown around a ton nowadays, and that's just if you are testing out something, you're deciding what's going to work best, and you send a small group of people two different things. You present a small group of people two different forms, and you see what feature of the form worked better. You just changed one thing on each form, and when one of them works a lot better, then you know that little feature made a difference, and that works a lot better. So there's the definitions just to start us off from there. So that, I don't know how many people are familiar with Fundraise Up and how many people are familiar with AskGenius. Our products can work really well together, actually. And just using online fundraising and direct mail, we are not rivals. I know in the industry, we like to think of ourselves as rivals, but we're not at all. You as organizations want to use both. So I came up with a little cycle of how you can use both forms of fundraising. Donor donates online. They're synced to wherever you store all of those donors. Then you can strategize and fine tune your asks by looking at the data of all of those donors. And then you can send out something to add to your mailing list. And then eventually they might donate online again. So you can start at any one of these pieces of this circle, and the cycle keeps on moving. So I'm going to go to that top right-hand corner of that circle. What should an online donation form look like? I got a couple of different things. This is what I see so often online when I look at a donation form that I am giving to. If you can see, it's very overwhelming. There is a ton of boxes. There's a ton of boxes that are required. I'm very confused of what's going on here. And very often when I see something like this, I click out and I don't end up giving. It's sad. My emotional appeal to the organization should have been better, but that's just the world we live in. If I see this, I might not end up giving. So what do you make it look like? Here is an example of something that you can make it look like. And I want to point out a couple things here. You can't see it because this is on a slide, but one thing is that this form is natively embedded right on your site. So we've seen that if when someone clicks donate, it takes you to a different website, or it takes you to a different URL or a different landing page, 10% of people are going to leave. Because they're scared by them being redirected. So that's number one. You want always your forms to be natively embedded. Two, you want to have some way of showing them that this is safe and secure, because they're putting their payment information in right here. So this little secure donation serves that purpose right there. And then when someone puts in their credit card information, maybe even having another spot where it lets them know how compliant, how safe it is for them to put their payment information in. Three, have the emotional appeal, have your branding, have your picture, have your ask follow the donor the entire time that they're on the donation form. So a lot of times donation pages will have that emotional appeal somewhere near the top of the page, but then once they scroll down to actually put their information in, they've lost that. Having it right in front of them with them the entire time makes a big difference. And finally, I want to bring up that AI that I was talking about earlier. Donors very often come to your form knowing how much they want to give, but a good amount of time they come to your form not knowing how much they want to give. And this is one of the places where we see the highest friction, is them having to think through, how much do I want to give? So what we've done at Fundraise Up is we actually have an AI suggest those gifts to them. So we take a whole bunch of different data points, geographic location, time of day, what device they're coming from. We compile all that together as soon as they click the donate button, and then we put these numbers in front of them based on what we know they're most likely going to give. I know Nick is going to talk about how he has seen on direct mail forms that it works a lot better to have the numbers in ascending order rather than descending order. So I want to bring that up. We've seen that on a desktop. So when someone's giving from their laptop, from their computer, descending like this works a lot better. But on mobile, if they're coming from their phone, ascending works a lot better. So that's what we've seen through extensive A/B testing. That's the higher conversion rate.
Will, I live for data like that. I get asked that all the time. Like, finally, we have a partner that has enough expertise in the online world to answer the same things that we're answering on direct mail. So you said for a desktop version, descending like you have it. If it's
Yes,
on a mobile version, low to high, ascending.
correct.
Yeah.
And so here I have it. Oh, I have it actually right here. So this will be mobile for my next, and as you can see, low to high, we have it right there. Yeah, next thing would be sequential. If you remember that first slide I showed you of the really long form that was very overwhelming, that it overwhelms the donor to have so many forms. So if you break things down into little chunks and present them to them as they click into the next screen and into the next screen, we've seen that a 17% higher conversion rate happens just from breaking things down into a sequential form rather than one long form. Next, the use of upsell tools. So this might seem counterintuitive because you're actually adding more to the form, but what we've seen is for certain aspects of your donation that you really want the donors to do, asking one more time in the process actually really pays off. Ask and you shall receive. So what we've seen is that once a donor chooses a one-time gift, if you have a screen that asks them to become a monthly supporter and change that one-time gift to a monthly gift, 8% of the time, the donor will actually switch and change that gift. And we've seen so many orgs have a 3-time recurring donor growth because of a screen like this. And our AI will suggest them things based on the gift that they initially chose. finally, or not finally, I think I have one more after this, but giving them the option online, especially to pay with a digital wallet. What we've seen is that donors online, especially on their phones, don't like to type in their whole credit card. There was actually an Onion article yesterday. I know I'm quoting the Onion. It's a satire newspaper, but there was an Onion article that was interviewing a woman who was going to give and then decided that she was actually going to save money because she had to type her whole credit card in, and it was saying she was a financial expert. That is satire, but there is truth to it, where I think that nowadays people don't like to type in their whole credit card. They like to click Apple Pay. It happens in 1 second. I live in New York. I can just put my phone next to the subway station and it automatically scans my Metro card, and I get in to go to the subway. So we are used to really, really fast payments. So giving people the option to have PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay, really, really reduces that friction and lets people donate a lot faster.
And Will, on that point, I feel like I've seen that a lot more. So I'd use, DoorDash or Uber Eats or something every now and then. And then COVID hit, right? And I feel like my whole life is just ordering takeout online. And I find myself like visibly smiling when I get to a payment screen on anything, and I can just hit that Google button. So I'm a Android guy, not an Apple guy, but I see that and I'm like, oh, thank heavens, I don't need to buy this Chick-fil-A for my kids and type in my dang credit card every single time. Like, I get what you're saying. I love that donation forms are moving in this direction.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, Google Pay actually, we've seen increases conversion higher than Apple Pay. So your team's winning.
We have this debate all the time in the office between the Apples and the Androids, and I'm on Team Android, and I'm excited to bring that little nugget back to the team.
I will actually say on the other side of it, for Team Apple though, in that initial screen where we had the AI suggested amounts, one of the things is device type, and we have seen that Apple iPhone users give 30% more than Android users. So Nick, you might be a cheapo, but you have a high conversion rate.
I won't share that data point.
Yeah. And then finally, we of this screen, we want to give people the option to cover those transaction costs. So we recognize that any platform you're going to use, any processor you're going to use is going to have a cost associated with it. Giving the donor the option to cover it makes the donor feel like their donation is being fully utilized. And as you just mentioned, Nick, about Uber Eats and DoorDash, they're used to it. Everything that you order online nowadays, you have a transaction cost. So it does not affect your conversion rate at all, because donors are used to doing that within their online transactions already. So we've seen on our platform that 92% of donors cover all those costs. Finally is asking less information. So you can choose what information you want to ask of someone, but the less is better. So deciding what are those pieces of information that are truly required, and what are those pieces of information that might be optional for you. On our platform, you can choose to make anything required. You can choose to make phone number required, mailing address required. There's lots of great uses for all those informations, but the only 3 that are required by us, is first name, last name, and email address. So making that information go down into smaller screens and making less information required significantly increases your conversion rate.
That's awesome. With our consulting clients who work with a lot of high schools and Catholic dioceses and large organizations, this is always a political thing, right? And it's always if the finance team gets their hands on the form instead of the development team, it's generally the finance team that's like, you got to ask them their social security number and their last known mailing address, and we got to make them find out their account ID and put that in there too. Like I've seen nightmare scenarios in this. But you're saying that in order to process the gift, all you need is first name, last name, and email. You don't need zip code.
No. So if you're using Stripe as your payment processor, which we are, and you have our built-in payment verification, which comes with our platform, you don't even need zip code or billing address or anything to be able to process the payment, because we've already verified that payment method. So there's lots of great uses to ask for mailing address. So many of our organizations still make that required, but it is not a requirement to process that payment.
Cool.
And then finally, what happens when you add all these? You know, how does your conversion rate get affected by doing these things? Oh, I got to go back. Here we go. We've seen when orgs use all of these different things, you know, they ask less information, they use the AI suggested amounts, they use the upsells, and they have it natively embedded on their site. They see a 2 times increase in online revenue and a 3 times increase in online monthly donors. So I like to think about how many lives that's affecting. You know, so I know all of your organizations are doing really great work, and how many more lives, how many more meals can you serve if you had double the amount of online revenue just from implementing these simple techniques. That was the top right-hand corner of my donor journey and making an online donation. After that, we like to sync all of those donors into wherever you're storing them, into your CRM, into wherever it is that you're storing all of that donor data. We have a ton of native integrations, so we make that really easy and do it all for you automatically. And then finally, you can start strategizing on how to send a mailing appeal to them. And I will pass this over to Nick after it right here.
Nicely done. That was fascinating. Question on, as I bring up my slides, if somebody chooses a monthly gift option, would you
Yes.
still want to ask them to cover the fees, or does that go, like if somebody does the upsell, instead of $120 one time, I'm going to do $20 a month, would you still ask them to cover the fee, you think?
That's a really great question. Yeah, we've seen that even on a recurring gift, asking them to cover the fees does not affect that conversion rate at all.
Yeah.
We've seen up to, I think the only time we've seen that it does affect the conversion rate is if someone's giving like $50,000 or more. It's a really, really crazy high number. And we've done extensive testing on this because it's a question that comes up so much.
Yes. Yeah. It's for sure. I mean, I think of our nonprofit clients. Obviously, you want the donor to cover the fee if you can, because you're a nonprofit. You want every dollar to go to, feed the hungry and everything else, but you don't want to turn off donors. I mean, I totally get it. And some of it was just driven by limitations. So even nonprofits that want to test with that, most of our clients are on BBMS or, Blackbaud, the merchant services. So that's something that I think they've been clamoring for a long time. Obviously, your forms look very attractive there as I look at them. Okay, so let's do this. I will share my screen. And we'll talk about the direct mail side of this. So Will has done a wonderful job talking about online giving and what your donation pages should look like. Now let's talk about some of the research we've done on the direct mail side of the house. And then I saw we have some questions come in, so I look forward to getting to those. So as background on who we are and what we do, actually, I run a consulting firm called Fundraise Solutions Group, which does fundraising consulting in the Catholic space. We help large Catholic dioceses run annual appeals, $2 million, $5 million, $20 million. That's kind of our bread and butter of what we do. In the course of that, we're able to do a ton of direct mail, right? So all of our clients are running annual appeals and they're mailing out to 50,000, 100,000 people at a time. So just like Will, we live to do this research on the paper side of things, on the old analog, envelopes and letter side. So the first thing we ever tested was trying to learn, what does the best pledge card look like? How should we design it? And this is what we ended up with after testing for a bunch of different clients. And there's a couple things that I would call out. Everything in pink on this pledge card is variable data. So you need to find yourself a printer friend who can handle variable data, right? This is not a mom and pop shop that just can only make copies of things. If you're going to send out a pledge card, you want to be able to customize things like the donation page, right here. This person is getting invited to go make a gift at support.dioceseofnashville.com. This person's neighbor is going to get a pledge card that's inviting them to go to a different website, maybe appeal.dioceseofnashville or give.dioceseofnashville, because we've by hand sort of manufactured that experience where we want to send high donors to a page that invites them to make a large gift and lower end donors to a different page. Will, what I'm hearing from you is that you've kind of taken some of that out of it, meaning if you have some form in which you're able to, decide what ask must put in front of people. Most of our clients don't have that ability, right? So we end up just creating different static pages that we send them to. The other thing we want to do is we've always been testing, A/B testing, the ask strings itself. That's kind of our passion. Before I talk about that, highlight two more things. Always start your pledge card with something like this, an affirmative statement. I think I saw the same thing on your online. All the research has been done for years. You want to ease people into that pledge card. And the best way is a checkbox. It's like, yes, I want to feed the homeless. Yes, I want to care for the poor and needy. So start your pledge card like that. Don't have to jump right into the bank style form. Make it personal. Yes, I want to do something. And then what we found works really well, we're always promoting recurring giving, the same as what you did online. We want people to join those giving clubs because then they don't lapse. That gift keeps going and they support the organization. It's wonderful. Every development office wants more sustaining givers. So we have found that if we can bifurcate that decision early on, right? Yes, I want to support you. I either want to make a monthly gift of this amount or I may want to make a one-time gift. That works really well. In terms of the ask strings, this is the way not to do it. So this is what we found: descending on a pledge card works less well than ascending. When you're going left to right, we have not tested it, Will, top to bottom on a pledge card. It's always been if you're going left to right as you read it, you will get a better response going from low to high. And there's been other groups, I think. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. There's a great fundraising author that everybody reads that did a lot of research in this and talked about the psychology of it. Like,
is it Tim at Next After?
It's Tim, but then he got it from the other guy out on the East Coast. Oh my goodness, I'll think of it by the time we get done with the webinar. I'll drop it out. But psychologically, you think about, so this person made maybe a $50 gift last time, and then he gets to fill this out, and the very first ask is 5 times what he gave previously. Like, that's kind of it's like a microaggression, right? It's like, what the heck? That's not, and then you start to feel cheap as you keep going farther and farther down the line. The better way is they made a $50 donation, they go to make their gift and they see 50 and they're comfortable. And then they're always going to do what we all do at human nature. You're going to look right a little bit, oh, maybe I'll increase it. And then they feel good each time they go right instead of feeling bad each time they continue on. So that's what we've learned. I'm always fascinated by what works and what doesn't. Here's what we do on a lot of our pledge cards is we default to a recurring gift. So remember on the front, Will, we had people decide you want to give monthly or one-time gift. And then on the back, in our world of Catholic diocese, it's all about, historically, it's about been pledging, right? Make a gift of $50 a month for 10 months. We want to move away from that into recurring giving. And this is a nice soft way to do that. So if on the front, you said, I want to give you $100 a month, you still haven't told them for how long. You get to the back and you say, okay, I want to do it until I tell you to stop or through the end of the year. So functionally, that's the difference between somebody making a recurring gift or making a pledge, but the donor doesn't care about those terms. They doesn't know what those terms mean. They just know whether they want to keep giving or they want it to stop. So yeah, that's how we design pledge.
I think people now are starting to warm up to the idea of a recurring gift because it's the way you pay for everything now. It's the way you pay for your subscription services. It's the way you pay for Spotify, and it's becoming so much more of a norm.
Yes, 100%. We see that across the board, right? And it's not just with young people. This is with donors in general, much more comfortable setting, especially if it's an easy process and they have a way that they can, change the gift if they need to. But it's a very normal thing with huge dividends to development shops. Many organizations are built to, raise their $5 million before midnight on December 31st. And then the clock turns over and they're back at zero, racing to go raise that 5, 10, 100 million. When you get recurring donors in the door, obviously you're baking in those gifts for next year, which means you can raise more money. We saw with the ascending, we saw a 17% increase in giving. We tested it out for a couple of clients. 50,000 people got descending, 50,000 people got ascending, and every time we found that ascending worked better. Okay, another quick research project we did. I got 2 minutes left here, and then we'll take questions. These are the donor personas that we have found in our consulting world of Catholic dioceses. All of the donors to Catholic Diocesan Appeals can boil down to one of these 6. And of these 6, the 2 biggest opportunities that you have to upgrade donors are someone who just made their first gift, and then this guy down here, Infrequent Earl. And I can give an entire presentation on this, Will. Maybe we'll do a part 2 sometime and we'll really dig into donor personas. But we found a steady Eddie, the guy that's giving you $100 year after year after year, you are not going to move him off that amount. He's already locked in. You are going to get $100 no matter what. First gift, Fran, if she just made her first gift to your last appeal, that is the time to take her from $50 to $200 or more. That first gift of $50 is not a sign of her capacity. It's a sign of her dipping her toe in the water, right? And being willing, if you do a good job and steward that gift and thank her in a meaningful way, that's when you can really increase. And then I'll just talk about infrequent Earl. This is a farmer, this is a small business owner who makes like a $2,000 gift and then falls off your radar for a couple of years. And we see a lot of our clients then, when they're going back to him in year 3 and he hasn't given in a couple of years, they'll go back to treating him like a non-donor, and they're going to ask him for $25, when in reality, he will gladly give you 2,000 or 3,000. It's just, he's a businessman in the world. He missed your mailing. It's not a sign that he doesn't support you. It's just a sign that he was too busy, last year. So you got to make sure we continue asking him at a high amount. Final point, we did a big research project, and that's kind of where AskGenius came about. We want to know, how do we set better ask amounts? And when I say ask amounts, we're talking about these guys right here. You're sending direct mail out the door, similar to what Will's got on the donation page online. When you send that direct mail out, how do you set the perfect amount for everybody if you're going to mail to 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000? Here's the research and what we found people do. There's 3 ways that nonprofits do it. Option 1, they send everybody this, they don't segment it. They just send everybody the same version. Everybody gets the same pledge card. You are leaving piles and piles of donations on the table if you do it that way. Second version is a little bit better. You have like a high, medium, and low pledge card, and you send those out. It's a little bit better. You're still leaving a lot of money on the table. The final method is, you'd be surprised how common this is. Well, let's look at what they gave last year and ask for 10% more, which might be good for some of those people who gave last year. But think of like infrequent Earl, who didn't give last year, who has a big capacity, and he gave 2 or 3 years ago. You're leaving all that money on the table. You're treating big donors like non-donors. Also, 10% is too little of an ask if someone just gave you $50. Going from 50 to 55 is meaningless to your development office, but going from 30,000, to 33,000 might be too much. That might sound greedy, if someone just made a big gift. So that's what we found. and none of those approaches really use the data that you have in your system. So for our clients, almost all of them are on Razor's Edge. They have all that giving history that they've meticulously collected for years and years, wealth research and campaign gifts and special event gifts, and all of it's sitting in there. And it's all just collecting dust, because then they come around to fundraising and they're not using any of that data to actually go and meaningfully influence what they're doing. So we thought there's got to be a better way. So Will, here's what we did. We said, what if we set custom amounts for every single household? So what you're doing with AI online, we're not smart enough to do that. We thought, what if we just went through a spreadsheet of 80,000 people and set the perfect ask amount by hand? And that's what we were doing for our clients, because we were smart enough to realize that would be a good solution, but we were too dumb to realize how much time that would take, to do all of that by hand in Excel. So we would go into our clients, Razor's Edge, and we'd export the data. The sign of a great software system is when the first thing we do is we hit export, to take it into another system.
Oh yeah.
So then we'd sit there and we'd have all the records for every household we're going to mail to, 50,000, 100,000 records. And we'd sort it by, all right, what did they give last year? And then we'd set ask amounts. What did they give 2 years ago? And then we readjust the ask amounts. What did they give 3 years ago? And then we'd go look at wealth research and we'd adjust. And then we go look at campaign giving and zip code affluence. So we did it all by hand, and it was a nightmare. And the problem was, it worked really well. So we did this in the Diocese of Phoenix. Lisa Wentz, good friend down there. It's the most successful appeal in 15 years. Average gifts up 20%. Recurring gifts, which we all want so much, gifts are up 300%. We did this for the Diocese of Dallas. Their direct mail is more than $1 million higher this year than last year by moving from that one size fits all approach to like a really bespoke custom ask amount. So we had this crisis where we're like, the thing that is the hardest for us to do and everybody hates doing is the thing that is absolutely the most effective, for our clients. So that's why we ended up building AskGenius. Excuse me. So we built a tool to do it for it. So if your clients are on Blackbaud, you can find it in the marketplace. Just look for AskGenius. The way it works is pretty simple. We built an app to do all of that unglamorous Excel work for you. So you go in, you sign up, connect it to your Razor's Edge account. You can choose if you want annual asks or monthly asks and how many you want in your string. Then you map some of the data. You tell the AskGenius where the data is at. So where are you hosting special event gifts? What campaign code houses last year's appeal? Then you can choose from a bunch of pre-written algorithms, which we've tested out to make sure they work. From very conservative asks to, swing for the fences, ask everybody for everything that you can reasonably ask for. You choose the algorithm, and then it applies it to your data. It goes and it sorts through that mountains and mountains of giving history. and it gives you this nice visual representation that says, okay, based on what you've just chosen, here's what we're going to ask people for in your direct mail. And you can click and you can sort through by groups. You can edit the ask amounts. So if the algorithm says you should ask someone for $1,000 and you look and you say, oh, I know, Mr. Brickner, I can't ask him for $1,000. You go in and click and you move it down to $200 and save it. So you adjust it and fine tune it, and then you export it, right? The end result that you're getting is a spreadsheet that you're going to hand off to a printer that says, here's all the data, here's all of our information, here's the brochure, here's the letter that we're sending out. And then I've already pre-built custom ask amounts for 100,000 people here. So that's what we do. AskGenius.com is where you can learn more. You can try it for free. You can also schedule a demo if you want to check it out. And Will, I want to ask you how people can learn more about Fundraise Up. We even put an ROI calculator where you can go on Ask Genius and you can actually plug in data about, it looks like this. You can plug in how many pieces of mail you send out and how you're currently setting ask amounts. And we can tell you, based on all of our experience and data, how much money you're leaving on the table. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, of course, Nick@askgenius.com. You can even shoot me a text. I put my cell phone out there into the world. I'm proud of that Omaha area code. So you can text me anytime if you have any questions. Will, how can folks get a hold of you if they have questions about those beautiful, beautiful donation forms?
Yeah, they can go to fundraiseup.com, or they can email me at will@fundraiseup.com. My Will is with one L. I'm a weirdo. But yes, WIL@fundraiseup.com.
Do you have a forward? If somebody types it in wrong and they do WILL, does it forward to you?
It will forward to me. Don't worry.
Good. I lost sleep thinking about that last night. I'm like, oh man, how many people has he not heard from because of that?
Yep.
Good, smart man. So questions. If you have questions, hit that Q&A button there. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes here to answer what people have. I think the first one's for you, Will, from Dorothy. What do you know about Give Butter?
Oh, Give Butter is great. They do similar thing to us, so I guess we could technically see them as a competitor. But we have a great relationship actually with Give Butter. Ari over there, he's one of the founders. We talk to him very often, and they actually implement a lot of these features in their product as well. So I think they have a great product. The way Ari and I have kind of decided that our products are a little bit different, and we actually pass clients back and forth to each other, is that our typically larger organizations will use Fundraise Up. We just have cemented ourselves as being able to serve those needs a lot better, and smaller organizations will use Give Butter. It is really, if there is a difference, I also think that their forms are not natively embedded right on your site. So like that point 1 is not there, but I think pretty much all of my other points, Give Butter forms are great. So I can't say anything bad about them. I'm a big fan.
Good. That's great. Alma's from Yakima. She's asking, is it okay to use a QR code or website? So I guess I'll speak from the direct mail side. QR codes having a real renaissance, right? I remember, 6 or 7 years ago, we were trying to put it on things and make it happen, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. It never, we track how many people use it. Nobody used it. Pandemic hits, and now I can't go or order off a menu, right, without pulling it up on a QR code. So the answer is probably both. If you have room to put a QR code and someone sees it and they want to use it that way, they'll know what to do. But I always want to make sure you have a nice short URL that you can put on there as well. So if people don't know how to use a QR code, they feel like they need another app, or it used to be that you have to have a separate app to do it. I want to at least give them something they can type into their phone. Not a long URL, but a simple, give.organization.com or something.
And in Fundraise Up, you can provision a QR code with your own branding in the middle, and you can provision a little short code that takes people directly to your website with the checkout already pulled up. So you could provision both of those from Fundraise Up and then put it right onto your pledge card.
That is awesome. I just learned for the first time, Will, maybe you already knew this. We had somebody do a tech tip Thursday at our company, that if you're in Chrome, whatever website you're ever on, you can click on the bar and it'll generate a QR code. Did you know that?
What? No, did not know that.
Yeah. So forget everything we said. This is the real help that we provided everybody on the call today. If you use Chrome, it has an auto generator for a QR code. Just click on the top browser over on the right, the little thing that looks like a box. The downside is theirs always has a little dinosaur in the middle, so it doesn't always look as professional if I'm putting it on something for a client. But yeah, that's one of many free gifts today. The QR code generator in Chrome. Sounds like Fundraise Up is way ahead of the curve there as well.
Jessica, I see that you had a huge increase once you turned off requiring mailing address. So I'm glad that worked. And we've seen in Fundraise Up, if you make that, I know that sounds really scary, but if you make that optional, still 65% of people are going to put it in there,
Wow.
even optional. I also see another question about, yes, I did mention Stripe. So Stripe is the payment platform that Fundraise Up runs on. They're really great. We're big fans. So
I imagine too, with when you mentioned, so if you don't make the mailing if you don't make it required, but it's on there, the way the world's working with browsers and everything, like if I start entering any data, it's probably going to autofill that for me anyway, right?
correct. Yes,
Okay.
we all autofill. So we have a native integration with whoever
Whatever that service is that does that little.
and so you could after 4 keystrokes, I think it already starts pulling up addresses that are attached to wherever you are coming from. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. Wonderful. If anybody has any last question, now's the time. Otherwise, I'll just say again. So Will, where can people find you at to learn more about the digital side of this?
Yeah, fundraiseup.com or will@fundraiseup.com. You can send me an email.
Okay. And if you have any questions about AskGenius, you want to try out the tool to set the ask strings for your direct mail paper stuff, go to askgenius.com. You can try it for free. It connects right to natively to your Razor's Edge. You can find it in the Razor's Edge marketplace, or you can email me. I'm also weird. It's just NIC at askgenius.com. So I don't have a K. Will doesn't have a second L. We are destined to be doing webinars together.
Friends.
I love it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'll get this recording up and posted and shared probably by tomorrow. All right.
Thank you so much. Great conversation.
Yep. Take care, guys.